Hey guys, we are just going to start in a minute. Okay, hey guys, so we can start. So I welcome you all in this small webinar that we have organized on the behalf of Cycus. And I would like to, before starting this webinar, I would like to request all of you if you could just, switch off your recorders as well as your video cameras. Great, great, great. Okay, so why don't we start with a little introduction? So in the chat box, if you guys can just introduce yourselves in a line or two, what's your name and if you're working, if you're a working professional or if you're a student. I mean, just a small introduction in the chat box so that we get to know each other much better, right? So I'll just start for so that we all are just comfortable in this webinar. I'll start. Great. So yeah, welcome Akanksha. Welcome to this webinar. Great, great, great. So the remaining ones of you can also introduce yourselves in we'll just start this webinar in like a minute or two. Great. Okay. So we'll just get right into this. Cool. Great. So I welcome all of you. Good evening, everyone. I welcome all of you in this fun webinar that we are going to host today. This is Ritik Gupta, and I work as a psychometrician at Cycus. And I hope you are doing well, and I'm fine too. And you must be thinking why we have organized this conversation or a dialogue, right? So here's the fact: we wish to throw light on the greatest human quality that has kept them going throughout these years of adversity and finding their unique paths to success through perseverance and not giving up in situations. We would like to welcome you all on behalf of Cycus with an intention to once again remind all of us of this effervescent quality that all of us as human beings possess, the quality of being resilient. Now, change is inevitable, right? We all experience change in some way or the other, right? And one day or the other, we eventually have to face it, right? Now, as a famous evolutionary theorist, Charles Darwin, believed that it is not the strongest who survives, but it is the one who is most responsive to change. So this thing, by keeping this thing in mind, we can just move further in this, fun webinar. So, just going to give a brief about what's going to be covered today, what is going to be the agenda for today's webinar. So, today we are going to talk about the different viewpoints on resilience. what does it mean to be resilient, right? What comes under it, what counts as resilience, all of it will be covered today. Then we will emphasize on its importance, especially in the current scenario, on in this global pandemic scenario. We will try to cover its importance in the current scenarios as well. Now we'll go much deeper into its background and discuss more on its conceptualization, how different theorists have described resilience, right? We'll also give you a few tips on how to understand it better, so that you can also strengthen and improve it further. So with that, in mind, let's just jump into it. Okay. So you can see a screen, right? So let's start by understanding what do we mean by resilience. So coming to the basics, what does it mean and what does it contain for us, right? On the screen, you can see three different scenarios. Now, I would like to ask all of you if you guys could tell me, which circumstances out of these three do you think best depicts resilience? Is it first situation, which means saving oneself, or is it the second situation, which means bouncing back or pushing back, or is it the third situation, which means gaining under adversities? You have to tell me. You have to give your replies in the comment box. Just type one, two, or three. Which one do you think best describes resilience? Which situation out of these three? So I would like to see all of you responding in the chat box. Let's see. Great, 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 great. So, a lot of you have mentioned the first option, when we save oneself, that is called resilience, right? And some of you have mentioned the second option, when we, push back towards the situation. Now, the answer is, the answer is both of these are correct, as well as the third one is also included. So, all three of them basically come under the definition, come under this real and umbrella of what do we mean by resilience and what counts as resilience. Well, it has been widely defined in a variety of ways that most of these conceptualizations point out to the act of saving oneself under adversities that we saw in the first option, resisting harm due to challenges and hardships, as well as gaining under adversities that we saw in second and third option respectively. It is not just about surviving, but also about thriving that counts as resilience. So this is something very important that we need to remember and keep in our minds, right? So coming to the current scenario, as we all know that the entire world is fighting a pandemic, due to which most of us are confined within our home spaces or within a comfortable zone, right, where we can be safe and healthy. One thing we must remember is that this kind of situation tries to challenge us in unimaginable ways, and it can also impact the way that we live our lives henceforth. Hence, identifying, acknowledging, and improving our resilience actually can help us to maintain a homeostasis in these difficult times. So most of us are working professionals, right? I mean, I see some of you writing, some of like one of you is a UPSC aspirant, one of you is a working professional, some of you are students, some of you, are working in an industry or a company. So we all perform different roles and functions as we contribute towards our organization's overall success effectively, right? Even if we are not a part of a working organization, we contribute effectively towards our tasks, our projects that we take on a daily basis. Hence, we kind of co-construct the things, with others. Employees make up an organization, and any trouble that it faces is equally incurred by the employees. Hence, an organization as a whole benefits from being resilient through its policies and practices to better adapt to the changing marketplace and standards. New technologies like blockchain, supply chain, add to it another layer of machine learning, artificial intelligence are continuously evolving. And the key is to become sustainable in meeting these demands. In the current times, since the chance to do our traditional work is disrupted, the chance to go to office or the chance to go to classrooms or the chance to go to our coaching classes is disrupted, right? And everything is happening from home. It has mended our ways, our roles and responsibilities in very different ways. Companies, startups, conglomerates have come down to their knees in order to resist the negative effects of the problems, that this pandemic has caused for all of us. Layoffs and cost cutting is becoming so common in the last 2 3 months. We all must have heard the news, right? Major industries which are affected, were hospitality, tourism, aviation, and they have succumbed to great losses. So, in such conditions, it must be important, to note that only resilient organizations will prosper in such adversities and thrive in the marketplace. One example that comes to my mind is that of Netflix, during the depression times in 2009. In 2009, the peak of the recession, Netflix gained 3 million followers, 3 million new members. And how did this happen? This was due to their new TV and movie streaming plan, which allowed subscribers to stream an unlimited amount of entertainment a month, along with their disc delivery service. Hence, the way they adapted to the times proved to be instrumental in their survival, and their popularity boomed soon following that. And this does not, apply for a company, for an organization. This also applies for us as well. If we don't mend our ways, if we don't go out of our way, if we don't think out of the box, and if we don't adapt to the changing scenarios around us, it will become very difficult for all of us to survive. you know but what we are actually looking for is thriving and not just surviving, right? So we have to do more than that. We have to adapt continuously. We have to see what are the changing demands of the market. We have to try succumbing to them as well. Now, another example that comes to my mind, can be taken from the film industry. Film productions are turning to release their films and shows, directly on online streaming services like Amazon Prime and Netflix, as you can see on the screen. Big tech giants like Google have, told its employees to work from home for the rest of the year, rest of the 2020, just work from home. There are tons of examples lying around. Now, I just want to quote one thing. It is resilience is not just what happens to an organization. It is also what the organization does with what happens to it. This is also applicable for us individuals as well. For us, individuals who are aspirants, for us individuals who are preparing for a competitive exam, someone who is actually just passing an examination, just preparing for something else, right? So this is applicable for us as well. Resilient is not what the life throws at us, right? Resilience is not the challenges and obstacles that life throws at us, right? It is also our perception and the way we react and the way we deal with these challenges. That's what matters here. So it is all about that. Resilience is all about dealing with such challenges. Now, well, if resilience is a quality, then how do we acquire it? It's one thing that we must be asking ourselves: how do we become more resilient? How do we improve it? How do we strengthen it? Right? So, is it passed on by our parents to us, or is it that we learned it through our experiences? Now, you guys tell me what is going to be the right answer to this. What do you think? What is the most appropriate answer? So, is it first? Is it learned? First option is it learned? A second is it hereditary or is it passed on by our parents? The first option is it learned? Is it given by our experiences to us? Or second option is it passed on in a hereditary manner, or is it taught by our parents to us or given by parents in a hereditary manner to us? So what do you guys think? Is it one or two? Great, great, great. So most of you think that that we learned this resilience, right? So the in fact the answer is both of these options are correct. Neuroscientists have proved that the way in which our brain are structured plays a very significant role in our responses to stress. Serotonin, the serotonin which is a common neurotransmitter in human body, in particular ways plays a very vital role. It regulates our emotions of calmness, well-being, etc., which greatly influences the optimism level of such individuals. Now, genetics do play a role, but resilience is mostly learned by individuals throughout their lives. Good protective parenting, independence in handling tasks, peer group, etc., all determine one's resilience levels. The way in which an individual explains his or her life experiences can also make a difference in his thoughts and behaviors. For example, an individual who has failed in a particular task, and if he or she blames the situation and generalizes the negative outcomes to other areas as well, then such an individual is more likely to quickly lose hope when dealing with future challenges. At workplace, being smart and intelligent these days is not enough, right? It's just not enough, right? It may not mean a lot until and unless an employee knows how to resist changes, how to resist effects of negative outcomes like stress and burnout. Moreover, in modern workplaces characterized by staff cutbacks, deadlines, rivalries, and organizational change, Success relies on an individual's capacity to cope and even thrive when faced with stress. That is quite important to understand and hold back and retain from our today's webinar. Now we have come a bit forward in our webinar. So just a recap, a quick recap. So we started by explaining what it really means and what importance does it hold for employees and organizations, especially in the current global pandemic situation. Then we threw some light on the changing patterns in the working of organizations around the world. Following that, we talked about how an organization becomes resilient. Is it only about the hereditary factors, or it can be learned as well? And we got to know that it's both of it, right? And sometimes it can be a unique interplay of both of these, and sometimes it can be one factor as well. But I would like to emphasize on one thing, right? One important thing to consider, one important thing to remember, that resilience by most of the individuals is usually learned. So don't worry if you think that you do not have resilience levels, in your hereditary, in your genes. It hasn't been passed on from your parents or your grandparents, or is it not in your family or whatever. We learn resilience, we learn, our level of resilience are strengthened through our personal experiences and our learnings. That is quite important to understand. So before moving further, let's take a quick 10-20 second break. So you guys can grab your water, you guys can grab your notes or a notebook or anything. If you want to make notes as well, let's just grab some water. So are you guys there? So we are back. I hope all of you are there. Great, great, great. Okay. So there are numerous theories around to describe resilience and its key components, just like all other constructs, right? But in this session, we are going to focus on two of them: Madeline Rampe's seven pillars of resilience and 4C's model. First, we are going to ponder over Madeline Rampe's model of developing resilience, which is also commonly known as seven pillars of resilience. All these seven pillars are basically components which contribute towards healthy resilient levels in individuals. Their presence or absence can significantly affect the resistance power of people. So let's just jump right into this. The first of these pillars is that of optimism. Now, it can be understood as taking positive actions towards achieving one's goals and expecting positive outcomes of the situation. Moreover, having a positive attitude for the challenges and making efforts to overcome these also contribute towards optimism. When someone tells you, do not lose hope, when someone tells you, always be positive about things, when someone tells you, always expect positively of things, right? Always expect a positive result out of situation. They're telling you to become more resilient, to become more resilient by being more optimistic. Optimism shares a very direct relationship with resilience. More the more the chance that you are optimistic, the higher the chances that you are resilient as well. Now jumping on to the next pillar. So the next factor is called being solution focused. These days we dwell so much on problems that we sometimes forget that finding a solution is also important, right? So it also involves understanding the situation or the problem from different perspectives, not just looking for one solution to a particular problem, but looking at multiple perspectives of the problem, looking at a problem from different angles and then devising ways to get those different kind of solutions, right? Now, it also means looking at conventional as well as novel methods of solving a problem and unconventional ideas to tackle an issue as well. All that comes under being solution focused. Now, another important factor that we need to consider is being responsible. It is described as the degree to which one himself or herself holds, responsibility for one's current action, for one's, accountability for one's situation, as well as being cognizant of one's prior actions taken to have reached such a phase. In addition, not to blame others for one's present scenario is also a part of being responsible that we need to understand. Yeah. So that's one thing that that is quite important. Now, another factor which is important for a healthy resilience pattern is that of a support network. Having friends at work is very much important, and research shows that having friends at work actually increases our workplace productivity by 7%. And that is something that is a very important fact to consider here. It denotes an individual's capacity. This support network basically denotes an individual's capacity to build and maintain a healthy network of individuals consisting of his or her family members, maybe friends, colleagues, etc., which may help an individual in difficult circumstances and may provide with him or her with care and support. These days we face a lot of adversities, we face a lot of challenges, a lot of hardships in our lives, right? It can be related to our classrooms, it can be related to our schools, colleges, lives, workplaces. But if we have someone to rely on, if we have someone to trust on with our problems, and if we have someone to talk to, it becomes quite easy, right, to share our problems with someone else. And they act as a support network for us, reducing our stress and anxiety. So there is something which is quite important in determining your resilience levels. Now, research shows that people who had a very strong and healthy support network with others, who could trust others with their words, who could trust others with their problems, who could rely on their support network, they were more likely to be more resilient in situations because they know that they have someone to rely on, someone to fall back on, right? So let's just move on to next important step in moving towards resilience, which is being accepting of the situation and perspectives. A lot of times, a lot of individuals are quite rigid in situations, and this does not help them to see things clearly, right? Let's just take an example. Let's just take, you are working with a colleague who is quite ignorant of your individual differences. You are quite different with that individual, right? And he is very ignorant of these differences. He does not like you, maybe he or she does not like you, and they clearly they're quite rigid. And when it comes to you getting a task as a team, obviously they will be less likely to work with you, but it is their harm that they are incurring on themselves, right? And this is something that they can't be more accepting of, and hence they are their resilience levels significantly drop when it comes to these challenges, when it comes to these adversities, stressful adversity. So that's one thing that is quite important to understand. An individual who does not accept things easily, who does not accept the things in reality easily, it becomes quite difficult for him or her or them to to actually gather their resources, to understand their skills, to gather their assets, to analyze their assets, to actually combat this challenge, to combat an obstacle, and to actually overcome it. That's one problem that they always face if they are not able to accept the current scenario they are in, right? Now, moving on to the last step, second last step basically. So a personal quality that will make you thrive in resilience is that of being flexible strategizer. It refers to having an overview of the situation, forecasting the future obstacles by reassessing the situation, and to effectively plan and execute a workable strategy to deal with those challenges. In today's world, just thinking out of the box is not enough, right? We need to come up with plan A's, plan B, plan C. If plan A and plan B doesn't work, then plan C will be implemented, right? We need to be prepared for everything. And this is a bit different from our traditional risk management, right? Our risk management construct that we have in businesses, right? So being a flexible strategizer really helps an individual to become more resilient in situations because they don't have just one option, one alternative to fulfill a problem. They have multiple alternatives because they included their past learnings, they assimilated their past learnings in devising a workable strategy, a workable effective strategy for future. That is something which is quite important to understand here. Now, the last important thing to consider is a phenomenon known as victim of circumstance. Now, it shares a indirect, a negative relationship with resilience. It is defined as an individual's ability to try putting the blame on, and control on the situation and subjecting oneself to merely being a victim of it. Such an individual can also put the blame on other colleagues as well, and they might attribute their level of failure, their failure in a particular task, to the situation or to another individual as well. For example, an individual who has failed in a particular task at workplace, they might say, the task was just very tough for me to do it. And they might say, because of the colleague A, I could not do it because he or she did not help me with it, right? So these are the typical responses that such people usually give, who have this victim of circumstance problem, right? So this is something which is quite important to understand. Now going to the next model, it's called the 4C model, right? So I would like to ask all of you to to take part in this fun activity. Now I would like to request all of you to get a pen and a blank paper. If you have it, type yes in the chat box. You have 10-20 seconds. Go quick and get a pen and a sheet of paper, blank paper. If you get it, just type yes in the search box, and I'll know you had it right now. Great, great. Okay, so I can see that most of you have the paper and pen. So we'll just jump right into this. Now, the 4C model emphasizes four factors that combine together to result in a mental toughness of an individual. These are namely control, commitment, challenge, and confidence, right? Now divide your sheet into four equal sections and label them with these four headings. Now take your paper, divide it into four different sections equal sections, and label them with first being control, second being commitment, third being challenge, and fourth being confidence. So this is the first step in moving towards this very thought-provoking, very introspective, exercise that I would like all of you to participate today. So I hope all of you are done with this first step. Great, great. So now we'll just try to understand, all of these constructs one by one, and we'll try to work on them, right? So first comes control. What do we mean by it? Well, it means understanding our emotions, reactions, and what is happening around us to be in a state of charge upon them. If we are in control of our emotions and reactions, it helps in responding in the best way possible to these demanding situations. Now, I would like all of you to list down five things in the control section. The first section that you divided your paper as. In the first section, in the control section, just write down five, things in the list that you think are out of control in your lives right now. It can be as small as not being able to finish a task. It can be as big as having a relationship problem. It can be anything. Just jot down five different things that you think are are getting out of hand right now in your current life scenario, that are being uncontrollable right now. Once you're done with it, just give me a thumbs up. You have 10 seconds to just complete this second step. Great, great. So I hope all of you are done. If you are done, great, great. So I think all of you are done. So we'll just move ahead with the second C, that is commitment, right? Like the second C that we are going to talk about right now. Now it is an important step, an important step towards having a sense of mental toughness is having a sense of commitment to a particular task. This involves not getting distracted easily and focusing on one particular task and concentrating really hard on it, right? Now in the commitment section, I would like all of you to make two lists. Now we are making two lists in the commitment section. The first list, I so let's talk about the third step, the first list, right? So I would like all of you to jot down five major distractions that are related to these five situations which are seemingly out of control for you. Distraction can be, a sibling that is troubling me with my studies. A distraction can be maybe someone plays music very loud. A distraction can be procrastinating, a lot for the situation. It can be anything. It can be not having the resources as well. It can be a distraction as well. So just write down five distractions that are keeping you away from being in control of these five situations that you mentioned in the first. So this is going to be our, second, third step here. Once you're done here, just tell me, that you're done, and we'll move further. You have 10 more seconds to go, so don't worry, just take your time with it. Great, great. So just again, I would like to repeat, just write down, jot down five major distractions that you think, are related to these five situations that are seemingly out of control, right? So this is something which is quite important to note down. And it doesn't matter if you write five or four, it doesn't matter if you have written three. It's the thing which is important is you have written something, right? So you're introspecting, you're actually going back to the scenario and actually picturizing it and coming up with your own factors. Once you're done, just type yes in the chat box so that I know, I get informed that you're done with this step, right? Great, great, great. So I think most of you must be done with this. Great. So we'll move further. Now I want you to make a second list, right? The second list. So I would like in the commitment section itself. So I would like all of you to write possible solutions to these distractions, just to these distractions, right? So if it's a sibling causing trouble, it means a possible solution can be me talking to him or her, right? That can be one possible solution. So and don't censor anything. This is quite personal. This paper will be quite personal to you, and you don't have to share this with anyone else. So just jot down five major solutions that are coming to your mind right now, ASAP, right now, as soon as possible on the list. Just jot down five solutions that are coming to your mind right now to minimize and reduce these distractions to a minimal level. Anything that comes to your mind, it can be anything. And it doesn't matter if you have written seven or eight or one or two. What matters is you have written something, right? That this is what we're targeting today. So you have 10 more seconds for this, fourth step. Once you're done with this, give me a yes in the comment section or chat section, and I'll know that you have done with this step. You're done. Great, 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 great. So we'll just move further, and it's okay, if you're left behind and if you're just written one or two, it's not a competition. You need not write five, points in everything. It can be one or two in some, or it can be seven or eight in some as well. So it's not like it needs to be symmetric. It needs to be equal in all the four parts. It's okay. Now the next thing that that is quite important in developing a sense of level, a sense of mental toughness, is that of having is that of facing challenging situations and obstacles. It is important to work your brain in a fun and challenging manner, which would keep it constantly active in terms of efforts you give in a situation. Hence, constantly challenging oneself helps you push your limits and realize your true potential. It makes you come out of your comfort zone. Now, I would like all of you go to the third section, that of challenge, and write about what are the challenges that you're facing, the major roots of problems that you're facing. What are the challenges that you're facing with respect to the five uncontrollable situations that you wrote in the first section? I'll repeat once again. You need to write five major challenges that you're facing with respect to these five uncontrollable situations. These challenges are the ones which you'll overcome, which if you be in control of yours. For example, me procrastinating for me is actually being concentrated and focused on my work. So if this is something that if I'll overcome, I'll be able to not procrastinate and focus on. Great. So we'll now move forward. Now work from home has become the new normal, right? Well, all those of you who have shifted to work from home mode are already adapting to these difficult times, and hence you are resilient in your own ways. I would like to affirm all of this. Now, just to give you an example, let's try to apply the 4C model here. Just imagine if we did not have a sense of control over our work from situation, work from home situation, it would have been so chaotic, thus causing us more stress and leading us to burnout, right? It is something that we need to commit to, otherwise it won't work at all and will affect our performance as well. Just imagine, if the employees at Google, if they did not commit to this work from home mode, just imagine nothing would have worked at Google. Nothing would have worked around the world if all of the people around the world, all of the employees around the world didn't commit to this particular mode of working from home, right? Now it is challenging in a way that all of us are not familiar with this mode of working, especially the senior members in a company, right? Hence, being rigid will just be counterproductive. Hence, trying to come out of our comfort zone and adapting to these changes with an attitude that we'll get through this, will be a huge sign of our mental toughness in such situations. So, now you must be asking, Ritik, you have talked a lot about resilience. What counts as resilience? We have talked about the hereditary factors. Is it learned? We have talked about the workplace practices that are associated with it, right? We have talked about the theoretical, backgrounds as well, right? So now the major thing comes, how do we measure it and how do we, better our understanding of it, right? Now, traditional measures of resilience, they have been widely created under this umbrella of self-reports, meaning that meaning what the individual makes of situation, their individual perception, and their differential evaluation of which such incidences in their lives, right? As much as such sources have garnered valuable data, they have come to be questioned for their authenticity and applicability. Because such measures were not reliable, an individual could provide self reports which may not be consistent with each other. As individuals, resilience levels are quite dynamic, right? So you must be quite astonished to know this fact that resilience levels are dynamic in nature, which means that they keep on developing, they keep on growing, they keep on adapting to new experiences, to new periods in our lives, as we just progress to new phases, new dimensions, new domains of our lives. So it keeps on adapting, it keeps on changing, it keeps on developing and growing. Because such measures, they were not reliable, these self-report measures, we had to demand for a change in the marketplace, which calls for getting a new measure to develop resilience, right? Now, as we know that resilience levels are quite dynamic, meaning that it keeps on changing, developing as the person faces new experiences in life. So that created a problem of reliability. If an individual takes the same self-report measure over, two at two different time intervals, it might significantly differ, and the individual might also respond in a significantly, social desirable manner as well, to make them look like they have suffered the most tough situations in their lives. They have overcome all those challenges. This can be one thing that is usually seen in these self-report measures, especially when it comes to resilience. Hence, it is important to get an objective measure of understanding resilience, right? Which doesn't focus entirely on subjective inputs. Now, these tests were developed to be more reliable and are more rigorously tested on numerous individuals to establish its robust nature. These have come to be known as psychometric measures. So basically, these psychometric measures are more reliable, as in, if you take these tests, onto separate occasions, which are separated over a period of time, you are more likely to get the same results. So they are more reliable, they are more stable. At the same time, they are more objective because they do not take into your subjective opinions and viewpoints, right? They are more objective in a way that your level of resilience can be compared to others as well, and you will understand where do you actually stand in your level of resilience. And if if there are some weaknesses or if there are some strengths, you can always leverage on the strengths, and you can always improve. There is always this area of improvement when it comes to your weaknesses. So these things are quite clear in psychometric tests, which were not clear, let's say, in self-report measures, right? Now, another thing that we need to understand, that these psychometric measures are scientific, and these are quite robust in their ways. And for example, let's take the example of a doctor, right? If you go to a doctor, just imagine if doctor just tells you that this is the problem, this is the thing, and just write the medicine. I mean, you would also think, doctor, I have a serious issue. I think this is a serious issue. Why don't you run some tests and prove it to me that this is the point that you're trying to make? And doctors actually do that. Doctors will actually, tell you to get some tests and get some blood tests, for example, get some, fMRI or MRI or anything, to actually come up to a conclusion. So it's quite scientific, and they love corroborating results. For example, if one machine tells you something, if you go to a second doctor, they also tell you the same thing. So it's quite confirmed that you have some kind of problem, right? This is just a quick example to enhance your understanding of it. Now, there you have it. We there you have a psychos, we, who are an upcoming talent in this field. So we at Cycles, are a bunch of behavioral architects who are passionate to use technology and knowledge to better decode personality. And what you can see on your screen, is our homepage of what we do. And we would love all of you to visit our homepage, to visit our website, and check out, our services and our products as well. Now, this is just an overview of the services we provide on resilience. If you choose to take it further, you can opt for either of these three, service options. We are running a campaign where we will only be taking up registrations from 20 individuals. The reports will be personalized and curated for an individual use. The link will only be open for another 24 hours. So we aim to deliver your reports within a week of you completing and submitting the resilience report, resilience measure. So if any one of you is interested, if any one of you can recommend someone who will be more likely to interest, to be interested in these kind of resilience measures, then you can always go to this page and register. And we'll also, for your convenience, we'll also send a link on the web, WhatsApp groups that we have formed with you guys. So don't worry about that, you will not miss on anything. But remember that will only be taking the first 20 people who register, and this link is only open for the next 24 hours or so. So so just to come back to the takeaways, right, we need to uh, actually look back and on a retrospective manner, we need to understand what we actually learned today, right? So we understood that no matter what the circumstances are, they may be difficult for sure, challenging, right? But we can always count on our ability of being resilient, right? And to face these challenges and hardships effectively and efficiently, especially in these times of pandemic. It is quite important to to better emphasize on it by strengthening it further, by improving it further, by growing our personality, by growing our skills, right, by upgrading our skills, by enhancing our values, right? Now, we also need to remember that it can always be learned, and one need not be born with it. You can always make it better and improve it to restore higher levels of homeostasis. And when you face challenges, when you're faced with adversities, we understood about the various theoretical backgrounds, and we undertook an interesting and fun and introspective activity to assess our mental toughness. The 4C roadmap, right? Now, reflecting on our actions and past learnings can greatly influence how we make of the upcoming future scenarios. So, this is something that we need to understand and take away from today. So, now we come to the best part of the session. Now, where you guys can speak up. If you have any questions, the platform is open to all of you to ask your queries or clear your doubts. Just type your question in the chat box, and I would be very happy to answer all the questions that you guys will be asking. If you have any questions, it can be related to anything that we have presented today. If you have any questions, you can type in your question in the chat box, and we will answer that right now in the webinar. Great. Okay, that's fine. It's great to see that none of you have any questions. It's really fine, right? So with that, we come towards the end of this session, and thank you all for being a great audience and for joining us today. And remember to share the learnings of the session with your friends and family members, right? This is quite important. When we get knowledge, it is very important to pass this knowledge on to others, right? To just spread this love and care for knowledge, right? For further information on our services and what we do, the cycles, you can go to www.cycles.com. It's pronounced as PSYCUS. We would love to hear from you on our LinkedIn page as well. You can chat with us on our LinkedIn page as well, and you can ask us, any queries or doubts that you have. So I wish all of you good luck in your future endeavors, and stay safe and be healthy and take care of yourselves and your family. Okay, then, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.